What does something typically sell for? The price. That is what we're going to go over in this video as we continue dissecting KEEPA, as it is the most important tool, in my humble opinion, in the Amazon FBA world. I'm Jonathan, this is Duke Does Amazon, my Amazon selling channel. I've been selling for almost 2 years now, mainly retail arbitrage, more and more online arbitrage. It's really changed my life. And so anyway, I want to share with you bit by bit about KEEPA because it is critical in determining if you should purchase something or not. First, we did an overview, then I showed you how to determine if something is selling, and now we're gonna go over what price does something typically sell for. It's great if something's selling all day long, but if it's not at the right price to make you money or to match your goals or parameters, it's irrelevant. On the flip side, if something is hardly selling and something has huge potential profit, well, that's also irrelevant because your items are going to be selling on the shelves. But if you combine understanding if something is selling along with what price it typically sells at, and if it matches your parameters, now you're like 95% of the way to making a very calculated decision. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hop on my computer, I'm going to give you two different product examples that we can look at in KEEPA, and basically what we're going to be bringing up is the buy box information. And for anybody not familiar, the buy box is that little box on Amazon where you go as a customer to click add to cart or buy now. The reason the buy box information is basically telling you what something sells for is because over 80% of sales happen in the buy box, because all people have to do is click a button, and on the back end it's priced appropriately to fit Amazon's criterias, which is a conversation for another day. I have videos regarding the buy box. Basically, you just need to equate that to that's the price, generally speaking, of what something typically sells for. Okay? Now also keep in mind, this is a general overview. There's seasonal items, there's very unique items. You can look into supply and demand. You can check out the amount of stock your competition has. We'll get into all of that. But for today, we're just gonna do a general overview of how to determine the price history of something. So let's get to it. All right, so I got my computer in front of me here. And so we are going to be looking at two products, the same two products that I just brought up in the previous video, which we went over the sales rank data and to see if something is selling. And again, now we're gonna be looking at what does it typically sell for. You really need both. If something is selling, that's great, but you have to be able to make profit on it. And if something seemingly is profitable but never sells, well, that doesn't work either. But combined, if you can master understanding these two bits of information, you can make a really calculated decision. So with that said, we'll look at the same products we looked at, and we're going to be focusing on the historic buy box information, okay? So let's go down to the screen here. Okay, so here we are. Once again, Mrs. Dash items. This is a very good selling product. This is a very lackluster selling product. But we'll start with the one that's selling good. So I clicked on the buy box here, which brings that pink line into play. Once again, KEEPA defaults to a 3-month snapshot. If we wanted to change that, we can go here, click on year, all, 3 months, 1 month, etc., etc. We'll continue on the 3 months. So all the way right is current today. The buy box today is $48.38. That means what it's selling for today. If you go back a couple of days, $48.80. If you go back a little bit, the highest it looks like was $55.96 over the last 3 months. And I would say this is probably the low point right here, $43.97. Overall, what I'm looking at just visually, first things first, this line is basically horizontal. If a line was completely horizontal, literally horizontal, it means the price would never change. This shows me that there's very, very little fluctuation. Yes, one time it went up to $50 for a day. One time it went down to $43. That can simply be supply and demand or whatever it is. But generally speaking, it's right around that $48 to $50 mark. Now, why is that important? It's important because you need to have a number in mind to base your purchasing decision off of, right? So for instance, if you're buying something and you say, okay, if I sell it at $48, I'm really happy with my profit. Well, this chart tells me it's probably going to sell between $48 and $50 based on the last 3 months. Now, if you want to play worst case scenario and say, okay, let's say it just goes down a couple bucks, $45 or even at $40, will I still be happy if it sells at that number, or will I at least break even? And then you can also play best case scenario. And so that's kind of what I like to do. I like to see what does it typically sell for. I'm not trying to play this guessing game of exactly what it's going to sell for, but this gives me a really good idea that it's going to sell between $48 and $50. Now, something I like to do for a product that's new to me selling, instead of 3 months, I'm back in the lower right-hand corner, I'll click on a year. And this gives me even a better idea of if something, a longer snapshot of the historical price of this item. So it looks like a good part of the year over here is around $47, $44, up to $55 at one point. Yeah, I mean, overall though, this is very consistent. It's a very good selling product, which is indicated by all these ups and downs of the sales rank green line. And then I'm gonna bring this back to 3 months. And then it shows me a very steady price point. This is a really healthy chart. It's a fast moving product and the price is very, pretty much very level, minus $1 or $2 here or there. So if it makes sense for you at the worst case scenario, there's a lot of room for best case scenario too. And likely, based on the last year of information, it's not gonna dip below $46. So that's what I'm reading here. Now let's go up to this other one. Here, this is more the lackluster one. Again, I'm not gonna dive into it, but you can see how many less ups and downs there are, how many less dips there are, because this item doesn't sell nearly as well. And here, so from today back to this date, it's been selling for $15. And previously from this date all the way here, it looks like it was selling for $13.24. So in the last 3 months, it sold between $13.24 and $15. That's really not too big of a difference. So let's just call it $14. That's how I would make my purchasing decision. I would say, if I think it makes sense to buy this product, $14 is the number I think it's gonna sell for. And again, that's basing it off of, it's either sold for $15 or $13.23 over the last 3 months. Very steady, very minimal change. I will span out to go a year. And this more confirms it. You see again how horizontal it is, minus one jump here. It looks like it sold basically for $14.85 for all of the year. Little jump here. $14 to $15 all day long on this product, okay? Why is it so important? Because prices aren't always this steady. And so there's a lot of nuances we'll get into later. So being able to read how much stock your competition has is something seasonal. But you can't just go off of the current list price. Think of a house for sale. Let's say you want to sell your house and your neighbor across the street is selling an identical house for $1 million. But you know how the house is worth $500,000. It doesn't mean they might not get a cash buyer on the perfect day when there's no other stock in inventory out of the blue. It could happen. But if you're looking to regularly sell your home, you're gonna list it at something close to what it's actually worth. Now again, nothing stops them for listing it for $1 million, but I'm not going to sell my house or try to flip a house based on that one outlier, right? And that's why you wanna look at historical data the same way you would in real estate. You wanna see what does it typically sell for, not what is it just currently selling for. And then there's other factors like I mentioned, supply, demand, stock, which we'll get into later. But in summary, now we know how to see visually if something is selling from last video, and now you're able to see what does it typically sell for. Now you can start making educated decisions. I hope this helped. I'm Jonathan, Duke Does Amazon. We'll continue along with the KEEPA series. If you have any questions, put them below. Talk to you soon. Take care.